Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Namaha Foundation's first sort of a live video podcast that we're doing called Once Upon a Time. We wanted to have some conversations with senior gurus, artists, teachers from various genres of art form and just talk to them about their journey in their art field. Because many times as we move ahead in our lives, in our artistic explorations, we forget our roots, we forget our senior gurus, where they came from, what they did during their times of learning this art form. And we forget where these arts came from really. So it's nice, I think, once in a while to visit the history and visit these old times and see how it was done, learn how they learned, how they practiced, how they performed at, when they were young and when they were learning this art form. And so today, for our first episode, we have with us Srimati Mythili Kumar. I would like to welcome Srimati Mythili Kumar, the Artistic Director of Abhinaya Dance Company. Mythili Akka and Abhinaya Dance Company need no introduction for dancers in the Bay Area, I think. But we still want to hear from her journey. Abhinaya Dance Company is celebrating its 40 years of performance and service to the art form here. And so we would like to talk to Mythili Akka about her journey in this dance form. So I would like to welcome Mythili Akka, and she can join us here.
Okay, I'm really far up there. Sorry.
Namaste, Akka, yes. So it's kind of, we're all learning how to do these things. So it's interesting, right?
I know I sat down because I decided I couldn't stand for that long. That's why I asked you how long it was going to be.
That's true. No. I would definitely like you to be seated and comfortable, because it's a conversation. We want to make it, try to make it informal, but also we want to understand from you, your journey, your, what has brought you here, what makes it tick for you, what makes it, 40 years is a long time, Akka. How does it feel?
Oh, I guess it's, you don't actually remember or know how the time is passing when you're actually doing it. So 40 years is just a number to me. It's just one more year of doing performances, doing our arangetrams. And actually the last 2 years, since my grandsons were born, it's like, okay, when do I next see my grandson? So this 40 years of dance is just, years just go by, life just goes on. Really don't think of counting and say, okay, 10 years have passed, 20 years have passed. It's kind of a milestone that the community wants to, either recognize or honor. And therefore you feel that, you have to highlight what you have done. For instance, 20 years ago, we did Natya Mahotsav. At that time, we thought that was, big, 20 years. And then in 30 years, we called it Natya Samarpana. That we thought was great. And now we called it Natya Sadhana. So, just trying to focus on what are the important things that we have achieved the last 40 years. But time just is, it really doesn't matter at all when you're doing it.
I think as a teacher, for you, it is like you get up, you do it every day, you enjoy it, and then you wait for the next day. So days go by and the years go by, and it's very hard to keep track of how long it has been, right? Until somebody else reminds you, oh, it's been this long. So having talked about that journey, Akka, we wanted to know, so we know that Abhinay Dance Company has been here for 40 years, but where did Mythili Akka start from?
Well, it's a long story, right?
If like was 40 years, that's why we called it Once Upon a Time. So we can hear
right.
that story.
So mine started 25 years before that, I think, approximately. We were in Bombay, so I think my father saw me dancing in some school function when I was 7 years old, and he said, "Oh, this girl seems to, like dancing and seems to be good." So in our house, we were a house of several children, 6 finally. At that time, we were 5. My older sister learned music. My younger sister learned Veena, and I was the one who was learning dance. So everybody learned something different. So he decided, okay, this girl is going to learn dance, and he found a teacher who would come to my house for 3 times a week. Which is amazing, right? I mean, coming to your house and teaching. Nowadays, nobody will even come to a class once a week, and now it's like 3 times a week the teacher would come. And I had a good foundation. If I had not enjoyed it, I wouldn't have persisted.
Right.
My father was influential enough for to get some performances for me, so that was there for a little bit until I moved to Delhi. So when I moved to Delhi, we had to get another teacher. So for a short while, I was with K.N. Dakshinamurthy Pillai. And then for whatever reasons, location and all that, we moved to Kalakshetra T.R. Devanathan, who was teaching very close to my school. And so went to him. And then when I finished school, 1971, I was in the January to December Indian School Certificate, which is, I don't think it's there anymore. I don't even know if you know of it. It used to be a January to December coming from the Cambridge examination system. So that was still going on for a while in many of the convents and schools. This was Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan's public school.
Right.
So anyway, at the end of that, December is over. Then the next, only July or June, the university starts.
Right.
So between January to June, I had this big long time, and somebody came home and said, "You want to go to Chennai?" And my mama and mommy were there. So I decided to go there, and I started with Guru Indra Rajan. Okay. And primarily, I just stayed with her, even though I came back to Delhi. Then we moved to Hyderabad. I used to go there, and she would come with herself and Mridangist Vandanallur Srinivasan, and we do performances together. We travel. I'd be going one direction to Calcutta, and they'll come another direction. We'll meet in Calcutta, dance and perform. It used to be really weird, but throughout those years, I learned about 8 Varnams, all Tanjore quartet, because she, although she was the niece of the Dandayatpani Pillai, K.N. Dandayatpani Pillai, she was not touching any of his compositions at all. She was trained under Kutralam Ganesha Pillai in the Tanjore Pandanallur style, so she stayed only with that style. So many of the Tanjore quartet Varnams and Tilanas and Jatishwarams and all I learned from her. And it was, that's how the Pandanallur style came, because even though I learned differently in Bombay and I learned differently in Delhi, ultimately I just stayed with that style. It could be some kind of borrowed stuff from here and there, which is into my body, which hasn't gone away. So,
Nice. So how was the teaching at that time compared to what it is today? What was similar? What was different? I'm sure a lot of it, as you said, they would come with the mridangist, and you would have some practice sessions. So how is it at that time, and how would you compare it with what it is now?
Well, as far as teaching is concerned, I think that as many of you know, the teacher would be sitting and would be, tattakari, and they'd just be tapping, and they'd occasionally get up and perform, particularly the masters like K.N. Dakshinamurthy Pillai and T.R. Devanathan, they'd get up very rarely. Srimati Indra Rajan came from a Devadasi family. And so she would, she actually had Gurukula Vasam, right? So she was a good dancer. So she'd get up and dance a little more than any of the others. but mostly it was, sitting and tattooing, as you call it,
Right.
while we danced. The only thing that was different, that is different from what I'm doing now, is that in the days when I was learning in Bombay and Delhi, nobody bothered to give you the meanings of anything. They just sang it, they would sing it, and they just, like Krishnani Begani Baro, I don't even know what it meant at the time when I was doing it. When I was 10 and 11, when I did it, I didn't even know. I just did it well. I said, call Krishna, whatever. But I didn't have any idea of what it meant fully, each word to word meaning, nothing I had. And I remember Natanam Adinar has this Padi Tavaramal.
Right.
It's not Padi. So somebody did Padi.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not the right thing at all. But that's how it was. They never told you the meaning. And you never bothered to ask, because you never asked the teachers anything at all at that time. To what they're telling you. That's how it was until went to teacher was in Srimati Indra Rajan in 1971. At that time, the person who had introduced me to her was giving me all these compositions and said, you have to give this to her and have her do it. So he gave her some Ashtapadis and the meaning. So that's when I started, okay, I need to know the meaning exactly.
Yeah.
Be able to do it in order to tell her the meaning, and then she would choreograph it, for the dance.
Right.
So that's how it started. So that's the difference. I don't think even teacher was telling everybody the meaning or anything at all, unless, deliberately a person like me asked, she wouldn't tell you the meaning. She'd just say, do this and all that. And, it was like that. Whereas when I'm teaching right from the beginning, you're teaching some people here whom you know that they definitely do not know the language.
Correct.
They do not have any background. And so from the beginning itself, you have to teach them, what am I talking about? Yeah. And especially if they're not Hindus, or if they're not, from your community, then you need to tell them who's Ganesha, who's Shiva, who's Muruga, and, things like that. So it's much more detailed here.
Right.
Than it ever was when I was growing up. Of course, in an institutional setting like Kalakshetra or any other, I know you come from Bangalore or Nalanda Institute in Bombay. There, once you've reached that stage of a university kind of a situation, they would definitely go with meanings and exactly. But when you're learning under a private guru, that was not the case. Okay. And so that's the major change that I made for my school and students.
Yeah. So how did they then correct your posture and your movements if they were not getting up, and if it was a one-on-one kind of a class? How did you know, like, how is Aramandi? How do you sit in Aramandi? How do you sit in Mulamandi? Nuances like that.
So they would show a little bit. Definitely my teacher would show a lot more. But those teachers would have the senior student come and show it to you. So there was always some demonstration. Obviously, you can't just, if they can't show a mandi, then you have to have somebody tell you what it is. So, they had some senior students who would help you or tell you what it is. But, as far as I remember, the teacher who taught me in Bombay and told me what was Aramandi or made me do Aramandi, any of the other teachers subsequently didn't make me go back to the beginning like we always do now. When somebody else comes from some other teacher, we say, no, sorry, you have to start Tayyati again. But they didn't make me do that in those days. They would just teach me items. So I already knew my Aramandi, and what they would do was correct it or do, teach me beyond that. So everybody in the place that I went to in Delhi and in Chennai, they just moved ahead and then corrected and your positions and postures and all that. They didn't teach me from Aramandi onwards or Tayyate onwards.
Right.
So actually I don't think I even remember the pattern of Adavus. So what happened when I was in Hyderabad, there was it was a friend of mine whose sister came from, I think, Baroda. And her name, this is really strange, her name was Padma Subramaniam. She was not the Padma Subramaniam, but her name was Padma Subramaniam. She had just graduated from Baroda. So then when I I sat with her and said, I need to know, how do we teach? What is a pattern? So that's when we went over tattadu, natadu, she just told me what it was, and I kind of noted it down. She didn't teach me, but she just told me what it is, and I said, oh, this is what it is. Oh, this is what. I mean, we knew certain names like Kutumettu and Tattumettu and Tirvanamadavu or whatever, but not in the pattern. So I followed that pattern when I came here. I followed that pattern, and the main thing was not just telling them the pattern, they would all want notes. Because there was no cassettes and all that at that time when I came in 1980. Nobody, would record you. There was no video record, no phone, cell phones to record. So they said, how is my daughter going to remember? You have to give us notes. So I sat and made this 13, I divided my adverse into 14 sets. Okay. And for the 14 sets, I typed up with my husband's help, typed it all up and made all these stick figures. So I have this it's still bound and kept. Some students still keep it, some old time students. Right, yeah. It has all 14 sets with, all the variations of each of the sets. Right. So that, and even today, when I'm teaching, I'll say, okay, let's go to set 2, number 8, or let's go to set 4, number 4. And, many of my students will know what it is. Right. So we kind of set it like that because of that. And that was because of that wonderful lady, Padma Subramaniam. I don't even know where she is. I never met her after that because I left Hyderabad and I came away. So but it was she was the one who sort of, gave you a little. Yeah, that is so interesting because I always tell, especially with children these days, they come to class and they say, what time does class end? When they come into class, they ask, what time does it end? And I always tell them, we never used to ask that to our teacher. We would just go to class, and then when he decided class was done, then we would, that's when class finished. So was that how it was for you also? Actually, 1980, when I came, the community was really small here, right? I mean, I didn't have that many performances as I did in India. So I went into teaching. I started teaching in the garage, and a few friends of mine, they had older children, and they started. And I was very particular not to start below the age of 8. Okay. My 8 was my minimum at that time. And then I made it 6 only later when my daughter Ratika Kumar's friends were all 6. She was only 4, but she was really a tall girl. So they were 6 and they all wanted to, she wanted to start and I wanted her to be in a group. So I started as a 6-year-old. So I lowered my age only at that time. That was in 1987. Okay. Until then, I would only take girls when they were 8 years old. And that way they were already ready for it, and they were coming twice a week to me. I was teaching them twice a week for 1.5 hours, first in the garage, and then we had rented a school and, we did it in the school Monday and Wednesday. So even when I was actually doing an internship at Stanford, this is a clinical dietitian internship. So my professor, my boss would say, go ahead, go to your class. And I would leave at 4 o'clock and go and do my class from 4:30 to 7:30 and then go home. And, I had only a few students, but they were all very, very mature and ready for this, because this was primarily the one thing that they had to connect them to Indian culture. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff that time. They didn't have a whole lot of commitments at that time. They were, all of them did study well and go off to Stanford and whatever places they had to go to. But then they didn't, this was very, very important for them. And I think in general, the audience at that time was very conservative, so they didn't, I don't think they, let them go to proms and this and that. And also they had a lot of time on their hands in general. They didn't have so many parties or anything. Right. So, we'd get together in a community or, whatever, but it wasn't, even the families were, smaller, the community was smaller. So they had a lot of time, and they had a wonderful peer group also once they started, and that helped them. I don't know if a lot of people would look at the time
Correct.
I would look at the time to say, okay, when am I going to finish the class and be headed home, to my children or something else.
Correct.
But they
Not
were
so much
they
then.
were quite interested.
Nice.
Later on, I wouldn't say that's the case in after 10 years.
Correct.
That was probably not
Changed,
not the norm at that time.
at the time. Yeah. So I know it's very interesting how you have seen how the psyche or the behaviors or whatever you call it has changed over the years since you came. So as I said, so what was the first thing that you felt was when you came here to the US, what was the thing that first, what motivated you to start classes, and what was it that you found different? How do you as you said, one of it was to create these Adavu sets that you had to teach. So what other, kind of modifications did you have to do from?
Well, I think that, as I said before, the community was a small community. It consisted of a lot of people who were coming from India straight after college and school. They really had no knowledge about dance at all. In fact, my husband also had never seen a dance before. He'd seen one dance, I think he said, by Jintimala Bali from 3,000 seats away or whatever. He had not seen. So most people were like that. They did not know dance. So there was no knowledge that we were, they didn't really come to you because they thought, oh, she's a good dancer, she's going to be a good teacher. They just came because they were close to you. Okay. Or something like that, or a friend told them. Right. So they had, so basically I had to educate them, and then slowly they would say, hey, this looks really good, that doesn't look good, this this is interesting, that's not interesting. And so really basically you're educating the audience as you're teaching, and so your community gets larger and larger because of that. Right. Everybody realizes it's whether it's good or bad, right. And they start becoming a little more interested because of the quality of the dance. Otherwise they would just didn't know anything at all. Right.
So what do you think has changed now since the time you started, and what has remained sort of constant and hasn't changed that much in your experience, both in terms of dance and in terms of the student interest and activity?
I think what is changed definitely is the audience. As I said, the audience was when we did a Republic Day or a Independence Day, the entire community was there. It consisted of all people from all over India. Right. And now that's not the case. 15 years or 10 years later, from the 90s, when a lot of influx of immigrants came here, there were now the Bihari Association, maybe 2 or 3 Gujarati associations, a Bengali association, a Malayali, 2 Malayali associations, 2 Tamil associations, tremendous number. Correct. And they've all kind of staying within their communities. When we have danced between 80s and 90 to 90, we have danced in every Kannada Kuta, every Telugu, I forget Telugu, what is it called?
Bata.
Bata. Yeah, Bay Area Telugu Association, right? Bata and Kannada Kuta. We've danced everywhere, Malayali Association. We used to dance, all the girls, meaning all my students would dance everywhere.
Right.
But that's not the case now. Now, everybody has their own community, and they have their own community of dancers, and so the opportunities for the children are limited, as well as, the audience is diverse, is much more diverse. So, I mean, it's a change for the better, of course, for America, for this, right. Having so much diverse and so much culture of different states being brought in, different styles of dance being brought in. But in terms of, I would say in terms of unity, that unity is a little less amongst the Indian population.
Correct.
everybody is in their
to
own
I'm from this
cocoon.
state, I'm from that
Yeah,
state.
it's very insular in their own cocoon. It's mixing is really, really hard. You really have to make an effort to do that, to get that mixing. And you know what? This is so bad, but there was no Bollywood dance that was so popular at that time.
Yes.
But that's what is bringing everybody together as Bollywood dance, although it's not what I would like to say, because we never would do any kind of Bollywood dance when we were growing up and in the 80s. And my conservative community at that time never made their children do any dance like that.
I don't think even that Bollywood as a term was even there at that time, right?
I don't, maybe not.
And now it's come to a point where you ask them, can you name a classical dance? They will say Bollywood dance.
Bollywood, right. Now it's like that. And also it's become universal that every wedding looks the same because everybody's doing the same kind of dance. So, but in a sense that at least something is bringing them together. That's fine.
Yeah.
Can't complain about that.
That's true. It's something I think. So do you think that has hindered the learning of our classical dance forms in any way?
Absolutely, it's hindered. I mean, you have Bollywood classes for 3-year-olds, and as I said, my age limit was 8, and then it became 6, and I'm definitely not going to take 3-year-olds in my class for whatever reason. So that's become more of a business, whereas classical dance is never, for me particularly, it never became a business. And I have, of course, a non-profit organization and all that, but in terms of taking as many students as I want, as I can, and that was never the case. I never wanted to be, like, get every student in this, every girl in this community come and start learning from me. I never wanted to do that. I had only about 7 students for a lot of years. And then in 1986, it went to a little more than that, about 20, 25. And then because my children were born in that time period, I didn't want to keep increasing. So only when I had the time and, the capability of doing it, I took some more students, and then we made it a non-profit organization in 1990. Until then, it was just Abhinaya School of Dance. So, the Bollywood dance is, is kind of, I mean, it's really sad. It's really sad that, we can't appreciate our own classical dances, but you can, I have a lot of people coming and say, oh, my daughter loves to dance to this Bollywood music and that. And I say, what difference does it make? It's no use. Unless they like classical music or classical dance, or your family supports the classical dance forms, that dancing to Bollywood music is not going to make them any great dancer at all. So it's affected our the way we teach, and I mean, it's not bad. Everybody's doing it. I mean, I'm also dancing at weddings, Bollywood dance, but it's not a cultural heritage that we want to.
That's not our history and
instill in us in our next generations.
Correct. Yeah. And how was, so going back again to your time in India, was there still this perception that girls from good families should not be taking up dance? Because even when I got married, there was a time when, some people in my community felt, oh, you can dance, but after you get married, we don't want you to be doing it on stage. So I'm sure that was there, that perception was there even at your time too. So how did you feel it? Did you experience any of that, or or for you it was a different situation?
No, absolutely. When I was in Hyderabad, and my parents, my older sister got married, and then I was next in line, and there were many proposals that came that would fall off because of this reason. They say, oh, she's a dancer, No, I'm not going to get my son married to a dancer. Right. And the reason I got married to Kumar was because his father was posted in Hyderabad for this last 6 months before his retirement, and a good friend of his was our friend too, and he brought him to my program, and his father and him, all their entire family, they put the talam really, loved. right in front of everybody. They know perfect talam is there, and they'll do it for the mridangam for everybody. So he sat in front and he put perfect talam. And at that time, we had already said that this proposal. I mean, our friend had sent it, and they were not very ready to do it because it was the same Gotram or something like that. So when he came to see the dance, it was not with an intention of wanting to pursue this relationship as a as a daughter-in-law.
Right.
But when he came and he saw this, he said, "Perfect talam," and he immediately told his, he wrote to Kumar and he told his friend, and so that's how this happened. And I met Kumar in San Francisco because I came here on a Rotary International Fellowship. So ultimately it became okay. But a lot of the proposals that came initially, definitely no dancing. You're not supposed, dancing was not supposed to be followed, as a profession after you got married. So I got married in 1979. You must have got married so many years later. And you're saying even then it has happened.
Yes.
That means 1979 it was even worse.
Yeah, I know. But here, when you came here again, was the Indian community receptive to learning dance? Or do they still have those kind of dance, classical dance? No, but music we will learn.
There are a couple of families who wanted to learn only music, but a lot of them knew that dance would be a way of learning Hindu mythology and talam, and even classical music. They get interested in it because they hear it in dance. So everybody was very open to it. I don't think there was anybody who was not. I did have an episode in I think it is close to 2000, I think 98, 99,000. And this girl learned from me, and her family was completely against her. She never did her arangetra. They were completely against her learning the dance or continuing the dance. But she learned it and she danced with us and all that. But beyond that, after that, they put a stop to it. So that it was a very strange situation because the thing, I mean, I don't know whether I should approach this controversial topic of caste, but they have seen Devadasis dance. And in their community, Devadasis were below them in the caste hierarchy. So they felt that, oh, no, we cannot have our daughter descend to that level. That's how it was. So it was so strange that they came to the US, but they came with those values and they came with those thoughts. And they didn't want their daughter to, pursue it at the, beyond that. And that has changed. I mean, that was very, very rare. It was one family among, hundreds of families that I've encountered. So it was a rare case of, not accepting the dance itself.
Very interesting. I mean, I'm sure even now people have some prejudices, but I see a lot more people learning, and boys are learning, which is another new idea for the kids here I found. And I said, I had to tell them, I learned from, my gurus were all male. So I learned from a male teacher, but they were like, oh, learning from a boy, dancing, but I think even that is slowly changing here. We see a lot more male dancers taking up to this. Still not as much as it is in India, I think. There's still
much less. I mean, I know I've had, I'll be able to count them on the fingers of one hand. Some of them have danced with our company, 2 or 3, they've gone to that stage. And some of them have dropped off, like when they were 10 or 11, when, peer pressure got to them, they dropped off. But there were some dance, boys who come in. And stay on.
Right.
But I think I would usually tell them, and I would tell people also, that the boys even among the Western ballet companies, you don't see the boys learning dance at that stage. When once they reach college and then they're open to it, they're open to modern dance and other dances, then only you'll see all these male dancers getting, training in dance and becoming wonderful, better choreographers than the girls who struggled all through their young years learning this dance form, and they just came in at Because the thing is, you're really aware of everything when you're starting it at
Correct.
17 or 18.
Correct.
Put your full effort in it, and you
Right.
really learn it thoroughly. It's like
Yeah.
going to Tamil class throughout your third, fourth, fifth class, and you're learning one poem at a time.
Correct.
And then you go to UC Berkeley and you take one course in Tamil, one semester, and you have
Right.
to learn so much. You have to read the Shilapatikaram at the end of it.
Yes.
So they have to learn so much in that one. It's like that. So the
Right.
dancers, even here among the Western male dancers, they have not many of them have started at an early age. They've only started when they were 16 or 17 or when they went to college, and they just got really interested in it.
Then they were, yeah.
So I always tell them that, maybe you don't want to dance now, but perhaps when you go to
Later,
college,
yeah.
Definitely they start dancing Bollywood in college. A lot of the Indian guys, they've never seen dance before, but they start dancing Bollywood in college. And then those who are really good might, move to the next level of actually taking it seriously. And, that has happened. I think there is a person called Daniel Phoenix Singh in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
He has his own company. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Right.
But he came here as a computer professional, to school to do his master's. And then he started dancing. And he has his own company, he's learned modern dance, and he's trying to get as much of Indian dance, by getting all the main gurus there and all that. So, I think male dancers are a good part of this dance,
diaspora.
But they just start at a different time.
And I think, as you said, at that point, they really want to understand the depth of the art form, and then they go deep into it. So coming back again, Naka, so how was it balancing your academics with dance? Did you want to be a dancer? Did you want to take it up as a profession? Did you think about doing that as a profession, or you had you said that you had a internship that you were doing in Stanford? So how did that work out? I mean, was it by choice that you took up dance, or?
No, academics was the main thing for everything, and this was, probably nobody expected that I was going to turn and become a professional dancer and do it for 40 years, which I've been doing. So I did a master's in nutrition in Hyderabad itself, and also registered for a PhD in nutrition. But the PhD was in this University of Hyderabad, a new university which was way out among the rocks, and no labs were set up. So I kept going there for 3 months, and then I put my foot down to my father and said, I'm not learning. I'm not doing any more PhD or anything. Don't waste my time. There used to be a very good friend of ours who used to he was a fan of mine, in those days. His name was, he was in regional research labs in Hyderabad, Dr. Bhatnagar or Bhargava, I think. And he and his wife would come, and his wife was a nutritionist, actually. And then they would tell me after every time I perform, and I'll say, I have to now go back to the lab or something, saying, don't you think you should just give that up and do only dance? I mean, why don't you, they were trying to tell me, why don't you do that? But you are really pulled in two different directions when you're there. You know that the dance is not going to be a profession. And my father had completely drilled into us that everybody, all of us would have a profession. So my sister became a journalist. My brothers, of course, they went to IITs and all that. And my younger sister became a doctor. So, I would never have become a dancer only, except this happened. And then what happened was I got a Rotary International Fellowship, which was given to me only to do a year of masters and be a cultural ambassador.
Okay.
So because of that, I had to, do both. So I came here to UC Davis and I met him at San Francisco. And then, I did my years of nutrition, but I did my year, my internship at Stanford, and I should have gotten a job at that time. But I was not a citizen. I was a green card holder. And so the couple of jobs that I got, they wanted you to be a citizen. It was in the VA hospital. So So then when I was with my first daughter, it was so easy to continue the teaching. It's easy. You're at home, you can do it around your time when, around the, and it was so easy to do that rather than go and fight to get a job outside and go from 8 to 5. And, that was a decision that, it just kind of fell into the dance, and it became more and more serious and more a bigger part of my life. And then I was still going and getting continuing education credits for 10 years, literally for 10 years. I did it thinking, oh, maybe I still will go back and become a clinical nutritionist. But finally I gave it up. I just
Do you incorporate any of those what you have studied as a diet, as a clinical nutritionist in the dance, a holistic approach to dance?
Well, I would just give cheese to all my students. Other than that, and also my own daughters, I would, I brought them up. I think they were nutritionally very good because give them the right combination of food to get the best protein efficiency. I mean, I knew exactly what to give them. So they grew up to be, very healthy children. And my students would also, whenever I didn't kind of push anything, but I would make sure, tell them that, they have to eat properly. They have to
habits and
the balanced food, balanced intake. Then before they dance, they have to do this, they have to do. So I kind of put it into practice in a minimal way. And I just didn't say, oh, I'm going to follow my nutrition principles here specifically. It was just, a kind of advice that I would usually give.
So this has been wonderful, Akka. So I'm coming actually to my last questions. I don't want
to... wow. Okay.
But I'll have my two girls would like to ask one question as well. So, so before I give the mic over to them, what kind of advice or a message would you give to students today? Because especially since we've having these Zoom classes, I find motivating these children is at least the younger kids is becoming difficult. So what kind of message do you have to students today when they come to class, and in terms of keeping up their interest?
I have a lot to tell them. The first thing is they must like movement. They must like to dance. They must like to get up and, move. If they're stuck in one spot and they just want to read a book, or they just want to, lounge around all the time, watch TV, then, this dance requires you to be a little more, it's called Java in the 10 essential qualities of a dancer. Java is like being readiness to dance. So that readiness to, move has to be there. And if you have to get your children to do that. So the students have to remember that they have to be ready. Otherwise, whatever the teacher does, it's not going to make any difference. If they are not ready, they do not have the urge and the agility. They need to move their bodies and feel see how it feels for them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that to keep it going, you absolutely need a good family support, because as I said, if the family, like in that the case of that girl, the family support was not there, and so it died out completely. So they have to have a family support. They have to have a good peer group. So if they have a good peer group that they are able to, talk with and meet with and dance along with, it really helps them sustain it for this long, because it's not 1 year or 2 years or 4 years. You need to be there for 8 years, 7 or 8 years before you get to do your Arangetram. I mean, you cannot fast track it. And definitely you have to make sure that every student who is listening to me, you cannot fast track this process and say, okay, I'm going to do my Arangetram in 2 years and that's it. That's not the they have to have, if their peer group is there, then that support is there for them to go through this many years of dance. And finally, when they do their arangetram, it's not, they have to remember, it's not a final thing at all.
Right.
They
Yeah.
feel, okay, I'm done with my
Done.
arangetram and I have to say bye-bye now.
Correct.
But it's a beginning step. It's a, you just learn to drop in this ocean that is Bharatanatyam or dance. And if they have to understand that, and the parents have to instill in them that it's not, the arangetram is not the goal. It's it's one of the milestones. You have to pass through that milestone.
First, probably the first milestone.
That you shouldn't think of it as a goal. You need to like the dance and appreciate it, and be able to do it in a group or do it solo, or able to push yourself to dance.
Right.
That's good. Anything else? I thought then I felt that one thing that they should do is that they need to be thorough in whatever they learn. That even if they have learned one piece or two pieces, that they do not have to, stack up items one after another and say, oh, I've learned 10 items, I've learned 20 items. That doesn't make a difference. If you're able to do those 5 items really well with good aramandi and good understanding, that's what you have to aim for, rather than just stacking up more and more.
Yeah, just saying, oh, I've learned 5 varnams and just don't understand the depth of it. Yes, yeah, and how would you tell, like, a lot of kids have this constant complaint that, oh, we have so much work in school, and it is true. I do understand that in school these days there's a lot more work that they do, a lot more, as you said, other activities apart from just dance. So how would you suggest to them to balance? I always say it's time management. You need to manage your time. If you want to do it, you will do it. But in what other way could we, kind of help them understand that this is also a activity that you should keep up with?
I've tried very hard, and I would say I'm not. I don't think I can convince them beyond a certain point, because this time, as their admission to college, to universities, to keep up their grades, it's so much pressure upon them that my saying, oh, you have to dance, ultimately I'll say it's your decision. Do you have the time to do it? Do you have the energy to do it? It's your decision. I'm not going to push you to say manage your time, because they have to feel comfortable. They're at the stage in high school when they're making decisions for themselves.
Correct.
And soon they have to go to college, when they have to make even more decisions for themselves. So I really don't push them at all at that stage. I say, you really need to want to do this in order to go through your arangetram or, learn this dance. I'm not going to tell you that, stop this activity, because you have to say, what do I like better? Do I like music better? Do I like this better? Or do I like volleyball better? And if you like volleyball, go to volleyball. Don't come to my dance class. That's exactly what I tell them. Unfortunately, I'm so bad. I'm not. I don't encourage them. I discourage them from coming if they don't have the time or the inclination. So that's just me, though. I don't think other teachers do that.
That's fine. So that was nice, Aka. So I'm going to actually get a couple of my students to join in here, and let me see if I can get them, figure out how to bring them back on. Okay, yes, I think I got. So can I invite Anusha? She had a question for you, and I said, come up with some good questions for Mythili Auntie. And so here is Anusha with her question.
Hi, Mythili Auntie. So I've had Naina Auntie. I've been learning with her since I was 7, and it's been such a great time. I've learned so much from her, and she's given me so many opportunities to perform and act in various different roles. And so, what are some memorable productions from your career that you enjoyed?
There is in our shows that we have done, 40 years of shows. We started with in 1986 with Shiva the Cosmic Dancer. That was our first show. But in my case, there are two kinds of productions. One is a solo that I would do completely myself. It's called Ekarta Vinaya. You do the entire program for yourself. And then you do a thematic production with a group production. So there are productions that I really liked, big productions like, one I did in 1989 on Navarasa, where each piece focused on one rasa. And, I got lots of interesting episodes from different mythological, literature, and I put it together. And it was a solo, complete solo. And then, like I said, Shiva the Cosmic Dancer was our first group production. And that was, we had so many aspects of Shiva, manifestations of Shiva, focused in all our, in 5 acts, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And, so that was like an introduction to doing even more. So we've done some things like that. A production that I just put on, a little bit of it I put on Facebook, was one that I had done as a collaboration with Guru Chitresh Das dance company, Kathak dance company. That was in 1991. And so he and I collaborated, and actually the dancers didn't do much collaboration. It was a group also, but the dancers didn't do it, but he and I collaborated in Geetopadesham and in the Tilana and all that. So that was a memorable production. And there are so many more. Yeah, and there are small things that I usually love to do, which is one is Chitra Diba Karuni. I don't know if you've heard of this. She's an author, but she was a poet. She's also a poet, and many of her poems are really, really descriptive of the problems that women face in India. And this was a Sudha story that talked about a dancer maiden who gets married, and then her husband abuses her. And so that was one of my favorites. It's about a 16 to 20 minute piece of a solo. So as I said, I have solos that I really enjoy. There's another one I really enjoy, and I'm still doing it, is on Nandanar. I don't know if you've heard the story of Nandanar. He was an outcast farmer caste person who wanted to see Chidambaram, was not allowed to go into the temple and all that. So his boss, his landowner who actually owned him, refused to let him even leave the village to go see Chidambaram. So that is, I had set it for myself in 1994, and that's one of my favorites. I still do it. So there are solos that I do for myself, and then there are group productions that we do for a whole. And we've done Gandhi, the Mahatma, which is, still do it, Gandhi, the Mahatma. It's quite a few that I can recall with, with some, I guess I wouldn't say pride, but with a sense of achievement that we have done something that is, for me, it's lasting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm giving you a long answer to a short question.
No, this is really nice because they also, 40, as you said, those different stories that, not many people would have heard, and it's a good education for them also to know of these little stories and these, kind of mythological characters, and also current authors and poets. How was it though, Akka, when you did your first production? How difficult was it, or how easy was it to get all the other accompanying artists, the text, how was it? Like, you have to compose the music, you have to find literature, and you were here in the US. Was it easy to, to make that happen?
Actually, the Shiva the Cosmic Dancer, which we did in 1986, we did it with about 20 dancers only, and 6 main dancers. The rest were all, the little kids who came in the first piece. My husband is he sings, and he was part of a music group as well. So I knew many musicians. I knew singers. I knew, mridangis, and there's a lot of people that I was already in contact with. And, so putting the production was, we'd have music sessions where they'd put new ragas. We took Lingashtakam and they put the ragas for that. And somebody would put the swaras for that. Then I would take up jatis and put it. So we had a Lingashtakam in one piece. Then we had Nagendra Haraya, which was Shiva Stuti, that we did with, so somebody else. And we wanted to do it differently from what Srimati M.S. Subbulakshmi had done. So we, kind of planned it differently and we put that up. So we had this music help. Okay. But it's not, it wasn't easy. We just had to keep meeting. And my husband also sang in that first production with Vasanti Kannan. And she was a great, Vasanti, I don't know if you know Vasanti Kannan. Her daughter is one of my first students, Radhika Kannan, who's having her own school in Mount,
Mountain View, is it?
Not Mountain View. It's what's it? Mountain House. That's the other city there.
One here in
and she's moved to some other city very close by, and I'm forgetting the name. But anyway, they come from a family of musicians. Vasanti's younger sister is a musician who's performed and still performs in the Music Academy and other places. And her brother is Mridangist Narayanan.
Oh, okay.
And her sister-in-law is Shanti Narayan, who plays the violin. And their father was a great composer. He's the one who he used to do all these bhakti sampradaya bhajans, like full-length productions, music productions. And so he's the one who put the music for my Nandanar also, because they used to sing all those. So he actually gave me all those authentic music that you would say he had used to sing for Nandanar, and he gave it to me. So like that, we had a lot of music support. And in that particular year, we had all these people, community, I said it's a small community. They all came together to make these huge, tree props. And then the first time we were using gobos with the mountains. And then the boon there and all that. It was really a lot of fun because we never knew that in India. We never thought of any lighting in India when you just dance on stage. So here these props, some people made all this big, huge pillar-like things for Shiva to dance in the, in the temple. So they all came together, and it was in my house. Those props stayed in my house for many, many years until I finally got rid of it. We used it like very rarely after that. But for that one production, everybody came together to do it. So for the first few years, the entire community would come and make things and all that. And after that, I'm kind of really, I think, really now, maybe. I don't feel like doing anything. I want somebody else to do it. I don't want to do it myself. That's how it is. We spent a lot of time in the early days, putting it all together.
Yeah.
So fun.
So thank you. And thank you, Anusha, for that question. It was, I think it made made Akka go back a little bit down memory lane, and we got to travel with her. So I would now like to invite Ritu, who has also been learning with me from quite some time, and she would also like to ask a question. Ritu, if you can turn on your video. Yeah. So I think you need to be a little bit louder. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Auntie.
Hi. Nice to meet you guys.
So my question was, how do you motivate your students, and how have your methods for this changed over time?
I think the main motivation for all my students is giving them performance opportunities. And that's like I was talking about how they used to have opportunities to perform in Kannada, Kuta and Bata and everything. So that every opportunity they got, they would feel, we're waiting for the next one. So that was a great motivating factor. And when those opportunities are getting less and less nowadays because of so many dance institutions and so many dance teachers and so many young dancers there. There's a lot of competition. So that motivating factor has gone a little bit. So now it's the performances that we give them. We do an annual student recital, and we have them perform on stage. And so that becomes a motivating thing, for them to, there's a goal that they have to strive for. And the third one is the Arangetram itself, that, everybody is ready to give them that support and do it, then that becomes a motivation in itself. So those are the three things I would say. That,
do you encourage all of them to do their Arangetram, or do you let it, or do you leave it to their own personal choice?
I have had a few not doing their Arangetrams, and I've had a few whom I've told them don't do your Arangetrams, because there's no point in getting up on stage and putting yourself on stage when you're not real, when you're learning. So I would always tell I have these Arangetram guidelines that I was sending out in 1990s itself, saying that you're learning the dance, and you have the credit for learning the dance for so many years. You've learned mythology, you've learned talam, you've learned about music, you've learned stagecraft, you've learned so many things, learn to put props together, maybe lighting design. You've learned all of this. This is a learning experience. At the end of it, are you really ready to do their Arangetram for what is the reason you're doing your Arangetram for? So if you have a specific and a good reason to do the Arangetram, then you should go for it. But if you don't, and you still have learned all this. And that's what you should be striving for, is I've learned, and that should be enough to get you into college either, put in your college apps, because you spend so much time learning it. You don't have to do the Arangetram in order to tell the application, write in the application, I finished my Arangetram. There is no, the fact that you spent 8-9 years is itself a big accomplishment. So that's what I don't insist on everybody doing it, and a lot of them have not done it. They've done some smaller recitals, like in a community center. They've done it with some tape music for an hour rather than a full 2 hours, because as it is at this time, there's the theater costs and the musician costs and it's become such a big affair. Instead of it, I always encourage them to have it as a small affair, as much as possible. No dinner. Of course, after some time, I don't have any control, but my first thing is, in fact, the last year, we refused to allow them to even put brochures out. So no brochures also went out. The invitations were only online, and the brochure was only, sent to them on their phone and online. So I just wanted to make sure that when they do their Arangetram, they're focused on the dance and not on all the other things. So, that has to be important for them.
Do you think that an Arangetram does, because I feel like a lot of the girls, after they do their Arangetram, I see a maturity in the way they perform. So do you find that change because they have dealt with, when they're doing a solo, a whole margam, a whole repertoire that they've done for about 2.5 hours solo, where they are the focus, and then having to deal with the live musicians, and having to, sometimes we make mistakes on our live platform, and they have to improvise on stage. So those are also skills that they pick up from doing an Arangetram, isn't it?
Yes, so it is it definitely is a very rewarding experience, and it's a learning experience to do the Arangetram. It also, taxes you, and it kind of challenges you to get the best out of you. And so it is, I'm not saying don't do your Arangetram. I wouldn't say that. But I think you should do the Arangetram for the dance and not for the dance. They do become extremely, because we have so many private lessons with them, they've become better in Abhinaya, they've become better in so many, minute details of the dance. So it really is helpful. If they don't do their Arangetram, they may not come for private lessons at all. So they lose out completely on that. So this private lesson is actually a way in which they get better in the dance and they get more mature. So that is, definitely. But the only thing I've seen in the last few years is that the student and their parents will insist and say, oh, my daughter loves the dance. And after the Arangetram, you'll see her coming every year for the dance. And that happens even though we have put a kind of a requirement that they should be with the dance school for a year after their Arangetram at least. You will see them coming for 8-9 months, and then after that they're doing all their hundreds of 101 other things that they can do, and they've finished it. And so it's very hard to get them back.
Yeah.
You know, so even if they're fabulous dancers,
correct. Yeah.
They just don't.
It's like I'm done with it.
After the Arangetram to come back. They'll just do it for this 1 semester or 2 semesters because it's a requirement, and then they're gone. So I'm not very happy with that. But
with that.
I know then that's the time when they're the best. They're best only after their Arangetram, and then they decide they don't want to come back.
Exactly.
When I'm back, we start again with the next group, and we're trying to bring them up, and then they finish, and then they go. So it's like perpetual climbing.
I know, feeding though, yeah. But I think with yours, Kas, you've been here for so long, so I'm sure a lot of students who've graduated or done their Arangetram and gone off to college will probably come back and joined the company, and they continue to be in touch with the school and their activities.
Yeah, considering the fact that we've done over, maybe 100 and something, 40 or 50, I don't remember exactly, Arangetrams, the number of dancers who come back is probably 10 or less. And a bunch of them came back in like about 5-6 years ago. And Rasika was there, Malavika was there, and Sindhu and Anu and Megha, and all of them, they actually went and performed in St. Louis, and they went and performed in New York. It was really good group in 2012 and 2013. A very good group. And then all of a sudden, of course, my daughter got married, and then my other daughter got married. They got married, and they all have kids now. So it's like that group went away, and I'm still waiting for the next
another
group to come. And if they do, then it'll be good. But it is, as I said, the percentage is so
correct. It's very, very few. Yeah,
less than 1% came back. So
that's true. So thank you, Akka. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. I know you are also busy with your events for your 40th year, and a lot of things are happening, and you're doing so many things apart from the dance. You are also involved in all these other current events and current incidents that have been happening with Black Lives Matters and the COVID and all that. So I'm so glad that you came and spent so much time with us. And I hope those who watched, I'm not sure how many people are watching us, but I hope whoever has watched us has taken something from this, because I always felt that we are moving ahead, but we forget the past. And that remains there, where, how we came, where we came from, what we did at that time. And I think it's very important to visit that every now and then, and kind of ground ourselves again. So I'm so
thank you. Yeah, thank you also for inviting me. I think I'm always a little too frank and too honest about many things. I hope you take the
No, I think it was a good. Yeah, it's always good to hear different perspectives and different viewpoints, and so it was really nice. It was really fun talking to you, and it was just so interesting, all your experiences and your life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and all the best, Akka. We hope to see the next 10 years as well. So
hopefully. Thank you.
So we will keep count. So thank you, Akka. And I would like to invite again my girls who helped us. Sindhuri, she's been helping me with all the technical aspect of the school Zoom thing. So she is the one who keeps figuring out, Auntie, we can do this, Auntie, we can do that. And she's also very interested in the art forms, and she's been quite a, enthusiastic student. And Ritu and Anusha, if you guys can also turn on your videos. Yes, so they have also, Anusha is...
Good luck with your dancing. Do come back.
Yes. I always tell all the girls who do the Arangetram, I keep saying this is the first step. So please don't think that you're done with it. Please come back. But it's always a challenge, as you said, to get them back once they finish their Arangetram. So, but hopefully after listening to Auntie talk, you will get some inspiration and motivation to continue and go further. Right. So, and to all the viewers who have been watching Akka on Facebook, thank you very much for joining us. And Akka, thank you so much for joining us and being our guest on this once upon a time journey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming and joining us here in Namaha Foundation. Have a good night. The next person that we would be inviting is Catherine Akka. So, and I think Sindhuri wants to take a screenshot. So if you can,
3, 2, 1.
Let me take this out. Sorry. No,
okay, I think you might want to take another one. Akka, do you want to take it up? You can take
I
it
don't
up.
look like it. I look like I can't see myself, so I can't see how I'm looking.
You're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got it.
All right, got it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akka. Thank you so much. And everybody, have a good night. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night. Have a nice weekend. Happy weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.